Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff here, and man, sometimes you get a hankering for a specific kind of beer, and I want me some barrel-aged goodness. More specifically, I wanted barley wine or old ale, and we have a couple different bottle shops kind of located close to where I work, and I decided to kind of pop into one I hadn't been in a while, and I found this. Yeah, this be Bonesaw Brewing. First review, Bonesaw Brewing. Never had anything from them before. They are out of New Jersey, but they're way down, like south of Philly, kind of, not super far, but south of Philly. Actually, the town would be specifically, let's call that out, if we can actually find it, Glassboro, New Jersey. And I saw this, and the name of this beer, you can see, Ominous Synth Music. How can I not buy this? So yeah, I picked this up off the shelf locally. They actually had quite a few on the shelf, so if I like it, I can go back and get some more. It is Ominous Synth Music. It's a barrel-aged old ale, coming at 13.3% alcohol by volume. Got a little story time on the panel here. It says 5 different imported European specialty malts blend to give this massive old stock ale. Old or stock ale, they say. I missed that or part. Layer upon layer of sticky malt flavor of fresh baked bread, spun sugar, boysenberries, blackstrap molasses, and chicory. Aged for over 2 years. Oh, okay. In sherry single malt whiskey cask. So sherry and single malt whiskey, 2 years. It's a blend, I guess. Bonesaw. Just, I don't know. Something about it. Not a big fan of the name. It's just knee jerk. No reason other than me just being a weird person saying Bonesaw. I think of Bonesaw. Well, I don't even know what I think of when I think of Bonesaw. Mr. Bone Stripper. That's what I think of when I think of Bonesaw. If any of you out there have ever watched the fantastical movie of what the hell's the name of it now? Now I can't even think about it. It's Chevy Chase and Demi Moore and Dan Aykroyd and John Candy. They're in Valkavania. Oh God, Nothing But Trouble. It's called. Actually has like the Digital Underground in it. Tupac, before he was Tupac. Very cool movie. And it's basically just a weird ass movie that's fantastic. So if you ever go watch it too. So death roller coaster called Mr. Bone Stripper. That's what I think of. So it's alright. Barrel and axes and stuff like that. So anyway, talk about a barrel aged old ale. What differentiates an old ale from barley wine? A lot of times not much. More specifically, you're usually talking traditionally an open fermentation. I doubt they did open fermentation here. It sounds like there was more just kind of a mixture of malts that they used in this, that they kind of considered an old ale, but such is life. This is the 2021 version. I did not notice that until I saw it right this second. So you're talking about something that is at least 2 years old, which actually bodes well a little bit. So nothing wrong with a little bit of time. But as far as that beer looks, I mean, it's almost stout level dark. So it definitely has that rich kind of darkness that you come to expect from a rich old kind of aged, kind of barrel aged barley wine or old ale. The head is probably just a skosh darker than what you expect. The head that is actually there. It's not a big head to begin with. And just has this rich kind of it's not a stout when you look at it. On camera, it probably looks dark as dark could be, but you get this rich kind of mahogany kind of going around the edges of it, especially when you give it a nice swirl. So it definitely looks a part of a rich aged kind of oil, a la Hardy's and Lee's and stuff like that. So let's see him get a nose. Okay. That smells awesome. That smells absolutely fucking awesome, to be honest with you. Oh man, that smells like the goods. That smells 100% like the goods, man. It just hits you with, when they're talking about this kind of like they did the, what did they do? They did the blackstrap thing, which I do quite often, but then they talk about this freshly baked black bread. I don't know what that means. Spun sugar, fine. Sweetness, boysenberries. Sure, if you're going to pick out a berry, a rich red kind of berry, you can kind of go there with that sauce, stick with it. But it's that blackstrap molasses. And they talk about chicory. To me, it's a marrying of that kind of rich kind of sherry and that kind of that erring towards that kind of raisinetty, sugar daddy thing that a lot of old ales tend to do, especially with a bit of age on it. Yeah, big bourbon notes, or not bourbon, no, sherry notes. I don't know why I keep getting, because there's a big cherry kind of component to it, a big rich red kind of grapiness that kind of airs into like a sherry thing or a cherry thing, cherry and cherry. They rhyme. So it kind of gives me that idea of that big rich red fruitiness in combination with that big huge caramel sweetness. Like I said, sugar daddy evolving into that kind of raisinettiness with just that little bit of touch of spiciness that you get from like that blackstrap molasses. That's probably your barrel charred play. Man, it really does come off as a really beautifully well done, big, robust, almost violent kind of big barley wine with a nice kind of barrel kind of richness behind it. I'm not gonna lie to you, pulled this off the shelf just based off of strictly, I wanted a barley wine, I wanted something barrel aged, and it said ominous synth music. That's the whole kit and caboodle of the thing. I've never had anything from these guys before, or gals, or they, or them, everything in between. I'm kind of impressed so far, so we're just gonna dive in. Cheers, y'all. That's tasty. It's very, very tasty. It hits in a different note that makes sense once we actually dig into the components of the beer. This comes off a little bit less than what I wanted it to be, which I think is the big kind of takeaway here. It comes off in a really, really pretty way because it definitely leans more heavily into like a European whiskey slash sherry thing as opposed to that rich bourbon kind of American whiskey kind of thing, because the cherryness here, that rich redness here, that kind of darker fruitiness here that we keep talking about, leans slightly in a tartar fashion. The beer isn't tart, but the fruit portion or the spirit portion of the show comes off tart, a la sherry, a la a fortified wine, as opposed to an American kind of bourbon kind of spirit. The mouthfeel comes off definitely the part of a barley wine slash old ale. Not super full, like a big barrel aged beer. At the same time, it's icky, sticky, kind of sticks with you quite a long time. The roasted malt comes through in a cool way, in that it's definitely not reaching that kind of, or I should say darker malt, but there's a nice roast to it that definitely just stops short of like a stout portion of the show. Comes off very much kind of just a richer, more kind of, like Amaris Ottery, richer, darker maltiness as opposed to getting super roasty toasty, but there is a little bit of toastiness to it. It's so like icky and sticky that like the outside of the glass is like kind of like sticky and gummy. It's like one of those beers that is just gets all over the place. You can't kind of help itself. It's just quite tasty, man. This is a really, really tasty beer. And it definitely comes off like an old ale for me. At the beginning I kind of was like, what really kind of makes an old ale versus a barley wine for me is that open fermentation. What that, or I didn't say it, but sick, what that brings to the table, which tends to be a little bit more of kind of like a, I would say, a more earthy, kind of softer, kind of like profile of the beer that you usually associate with like a yeast, and you're actually getting that here. You're not getting that sharpness. That's the word we're looking for, that you typically get with like a barley wine. There's something soft there. There's a little bit of shaved edges to it. Now that could be a little bit of time. It could be the way the sherry cask and what was the other? I don't remember what the other one was. A whiskey. That sherry slash whiskey cask is kind of bringing to the table here. But it very much reminds me of like a classic old fermented kind of old ale. Now, whether they did that or not, I don't know. Whether it's a little bit of kind of suggested whatever it is, being that I'm calling it an old ale the whole time. What I do know, it's giving me a lot of fun flavors. Those rich red fruits. They talk about chicory. I think it's more like a barrel char kind of thing, which kind of makes sense because chicory kind of comes off as like a smoky woody charness, because that's actually what it is. And it's just that combination of that whiskey and sherry in combination with that nice kind of sweeter but not over the top kind of old ale slash barley wine kind of vibe to it. It makes for a really, really fun beer. Very mature. I know 2021 doesn't mean for a very, very old beer, especially when it comes to these kind of beers, but you're talking about an old ale. Who knows how it was made? At least we don't know based off what's written on the label in combination with the barrel. Not necessarily a long haul ager with those kind of characteristics. So, 2 years is not all that long, but I think it's done it quite well. Has it changed? Sure. Has it morphed into something a little bit different than what it originally was? I'm pretty sure that's the case. Is it better? Like, has it gained? Is it past its prime? I don't know the answer to that question. It's kind of one of those bummers where you wish you had this beer fresh to where you could actually speak to it being, okay, I wish I had it fresh, or I need a little bit more time. I don't see this gaining much over time, so if anything, it could be at its peak, if not down the downswing. But I don't think it's going to fall off all that much. It's going to be a slow, gradual kind of teetering down. But in the grand scheme of things, you're talking about a brewery that I see on the shelves that I haven't really drank much from, but picked up on a whim and was looking for an experience that was not exactly what I was looking for, but kind of an experience I needed. A nice, rich kind of old ale with some layered, kind of complex barreling in a very fun package. I'm game. I'm game. Man, words are hard sometimes. That's what happens when you don't review as much. But yeah, 2021, 2-year-old old ale, aged in multiple casks, I assume is blended. I'm a fan. I dig it. I'm going to pick up some more from these guys and gals and everything in between. So there you go. Little review in the books. Is it one of the better old ale / barley wines I've had as of late? Yes. Mount Rushmore side is probably just eking just outside of that, but worthy being up there. Value and availability, I want to say paid after taxes, so probably $17 for this, and leave you with, if you like what you like this, if you like that kind of aged, old Hardy's, Lee's, that kind of beer. It's a different beast in that, but it's very much in the same kind of genre. I would imagine these kind of vary from bottle to bottle. That's the kind of vibe I get from them. But if you're looking for that old school barley wine, old ale, kind of mean mugging, old, aged stuff, you'd be hard pressed to do worse than this. Or better than this. Man, worse than this would be like, this thing sucks. That's what I'm saying. Words are hard, man. When you have a kid, 2 years old, they get all the hearts. Anyway, there you go. Let's talk about it. Bonesaw. Have you been to the brewery? Have you had their beers? Have you had this particular beer? That would be a good conversation down there and all that fun stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully enjoying a little bit of aged, barrel-aged old ale right now. Hopefully you enjoyed this fumbling, mumbling, not that streamlined of a review. We'll see you next time. Cheers, y'all.